Anthony F. Elmore, President and founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. We are not only the Black Buddhist voice in America, we are the Black Buddhist voice in the world. And we are the blackest Buddhists in America. Now when we say black, we don't mean race, we mean cultural, in that we are a black cultural organization. Now, today I bring you another exciting Black Buddhist lecture. Now, my lecture today is titled Black Buddhist Teachings and the Capital Riots. If you are a black person and you want to learn about Buddhism, you are not going to learn Buddhism in terms of a black perspective from an Asian. You're not going to learn it from a black person who has Asian Buddhist teachers. In order to get a black perspective, you have to go to a black Buddhist. Now, in terms of me, Anthony F. Elmore, I began practicing Buddhism in 1970 while I was a student in Memphis at Hamilton High School. Now, I started taking what is called Old Japanese Shotokan Karate, and we practiced Zen Buddhism. Now, in 1974, I was introduced to Nichiren Buddhism via an organization called Nichiren Shoshu America, or NSA, or SGI, Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism. Anyway, that's a long story, but let's get into our lecture today. Now, I want you to, in order to talk about Buddhism, I want to go back 10 years to 2012, and I want you to first Google the name Mario Henry versus, or technically, let's get it again. I want you to Google Anthony Elmore versus Mario Henry debate. See, this happened 10 years ago in 2012. See, Google the name Mario Henry and you will learn that Mario Henry is one of the most dynamic black business leaders in America. Mario Henry is a former NFL player with the New England Patriots. Mario is a financial services professional, and he appeared in the top 100 people in the real estate magazine. While Mario is a Buddhist, or at least at that time he was practicing Buddhism, you see, in 2012, I left the Japanese Buddhist sects to teach a Buddhism that's inclusive of our black history, our black culture, and our language. And not only Mario Henry, but African Americans were in an uproar that a black person would break away from the Asians and teach a Buddhism, or teach what they call a black Buddhism. In fact, this is what Mario Henry is on record as saying. He's trying to use Buddhism to elevate African Americans in a cultural context. It's clearly exclusionary of other races, which is not the intent of the practice, unquote. Now, this brother defends other races, or it defends excluding other races to teach black Buddhist history, and he reprimands me for challenging his Japanese masters who erase all black history, culture, and language from Buddhism. See, Mario Henry further wrote, and this is on just Google it, is that he wrote, quote, "I am a black man and a proud one too, but that doesn't mean I need a special Buddhism for black people. That was not Nichiren's intent," unquote. You see, let me be clear. I am a proud black man. And as a proud black man, I like black women, I like my black culture, I like my black people. Just because I go to a black movie doesn't mean I'm excluding white people. In fact, if you want to talk about exclusion, the greatest exclusion that you will see in America is on Sunday, and you see it at churches. African Americans do not go to church, or blacks and whites do not really go to church together. Not really. We got the black church. Now, this brother and others who are in Buddhism are upset, and they take issue with the African American or a black person who practice and explain Buddhism inclusive of our black history, our black culture, and our language. Like in my case, I like to be able to hear other black people. I'm happy when other black people go out and do things, and they pioneer things, and they pioneer efforts. But anyway, let's go further into this lecture. You see, Mr. Mario Henry's statement about there not needing to be a special Buddhism for black people was not Nietzsche's intent. Now, first of all, what Mario Henry and what no African American talk about is the fact that Nichiren Shonin, now Nichiren means what means sun lotus, and Shonin means priest. Now Nichiren lived in 13th century Japan. Now what they don't talk about, or what the Japanese do not talk about, is that ancient Japan was started by black people. In fact, the shogun of Japan was black. The black people, when you look at the ninjas and the shogun and the fighting, these were black people who once lived in Japan. But they don't talk about this. See, Nichiren says in the Ghost Show, he says, I am the son of a Chandela family. The Chandelas were the oppressed black Buddhists who lived in India, who were oppressed by the Hindu. You see, Nichiren tells you that he was black. Look at the picture of Nichiren. That is a black person. That does not look like a regular Japanese as we know Japanese now. Let me be clear. Nichiren writes, he writes this. He says, now, there is a Ghost Show. Now, Nichiren taught people, or he taught his disciples by writing letters. These letters are called the Ghost Show. The Ghost Show are a compilation of letters that Nichiren used to teach his disciples, and gathered all the letters, and they made what is called a Ghost Show, which is now kind of like a Buddhist Bible. But anyway, in one of Nichiren's Ghost Shows, he explains this, and he challenges Mario Henry or any of the other black people who have this notion that there should not be a black Buddhist sect, or we should not teach Buddhism inclusive of our culture, history, and language. Now, Nichiren deals with this in the Ghost Show. Now, the Ghost Show is titled The Recitation of the Expedient Means and Lifespan Chapters. And it reads, quote, now listen, it says, when we scrutinize the sutras and treatises with care, we find that there is a teaching about a precept known as following the customs of the region that corresponds to this. The meaning of this precept is that so long as no seriously offensive act is involved, then even if one were to depart to some slight degree from the teachings of Buddhism, it would be better to avoid going against the manners and customs of the country. This is a precept expounded by the Buddha. And it appears that some wise men who are unaware of this point express extreme views. For example, African Americans like Mario Henry and others, they express extreme views against a black Buddhist or a black Buddhist group. They have these extreme views that you got to practice or you cannot practice according to your community. Now, you see, let me be clear. Nichiren writes, this is a precept expounded by the Buddha. It is the Buddha Shakyamuni who taught the precept of following the customs of a region. I live in a region, I live in a community called Orange Mound. It is the first planned community in America built for blacks by blacks, and we are a 99% African American community. Now, we have a custom. You probably got 30 churches in this community. We have a culture, we have a history, and we practice Buddhism according to our customs and history. Just look, I practice Buddhism and I am with African Americans. Now, it's no problem for white people. If they want, this lecture goes out worldwide on the internet, and whites can learn just as much from this as African Americans. However, we teach Buddhism inclusive of our culture, our history, and we include our language. Now, let me be clear. Black people are not going to listen to a white person or an Asian about Buddhism. The Go-Show writers are Nichiren titled, that's titled Propagation of the Wise, whereas the first sentence reads, quote, the correct teachings of the time can only be propagated only by a person of wisdom. If you don't have no wisdom or you don't have no common sense, how are you going to go and teach Buddhism to African Americans when you got no African American leader who can stand up and proudly and boldly and intelligently explain Buddhism? But let's take this thing further. Now, in regards to my lecture, on November the 10th, 2016, I published a lecture titled, Donald Trump, New President. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to listen to what I wrote 6 years ago about Donald Trump. Now, this is 6 years ago. I want you to listen to some excerpts about this lecture because I warned America about Donald Trump 6 years ago. Let's listen to some excerpts from my 2016 lecture when Donald Trump was just elected president 2 days after that. Now, our lecture today is called Donald Trump, the New President, Black Buddhist Lecture. Now, when we think about the Buddhist religion, most of us have in mind that Buddhism is about some Asian on a mountain or it relates to Asians. Actually, the true Buddhist teachings is that of the Lotus Sutra, and it has nothing to do with Asians. Now, the true Buddhism is actually about your everyday life. That is how the Lotus Sutra explains it. Now, last night we had a presidential election, whereas Donald J. Trump became the 45th president of the United States of America. Now, this election is Buddhism because this election is what we call holy. Now, this gives you an explanation. Now, the word Ren means lotus, and it also means cause. So you got, it means cause, and Gay means effect. So when you say Namo Myoho Renge, Renge means lotus flower because the flower and the seed comes together, and it's an analogy for the meaning, or it explains the law of cause and effect. For example, the presidential election of Donald J. Trump is the manifestation of hope, or it is just a manifestation of the law of cause and effect. That's why it is Buddhism, or that's why all phenomena is Buddhism. Now, let me explain. See, the Lotus Sutra explains the concept of whole, or the 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence. Now, the sixth world is the world of heaven, where when you look on TV last night and you see Donald Trump, and you see the Donald Trump supporters, they were so elated because Donald Trump won. See, they were in the world of heaven, whereas you see those who support Hillary Clinton, like myself, we go into the world of hell, or some of us go into the world of anger. Now, you got these 10 worlds. You got hell, hunger, animality, then you got anger. Then you got the world of humanity, that's the 5th world. Now the 6th world is the world of happiness, which you got this temporary state of happiness. Now, then you got from the 6th world of heaven, then you got the world of learning. That is, we can get involved in something and learn about something. These are the 4 higher conditions. Then you got the world of self-realization, which is the 8th. Now the 9th world is Buddhism, or Bodhisattva, to where you want to do good for others. That's a world like being Christ-like. So that's the world of Bodhisattva. And the 10th world is what we strive to be as Buddhists. That is, we strive to reach Buddhahood, or an enlightened life condition where we understand life and all universal phenomena. Now, you got 10 worlds. Now, each world exists in each world. For example, you can be in the world of hell and the world of Buddhahood. For example, a Nelson Mandela, for example, was in prison for 32 years, but in his mind, he lifted himself to a higher life condition. You see, there are different types of hell. So you got 10 worlds, and each world exists into each world, which is 100 worlds. Now, you take these 100 worlds, and the 100 worlds manifest in what we call karma. Karma is like 10 aspects. See, karma is the law of cause and effect, but karma manifests itself in a physical form, or in a series of cause and effect relationships. For example, in the 10 aspects, you got an appearance. You got an appearance, you got a nature, then you got an entity. The appearance and nature and entity leads to a power, and the power leads to an influence. Now the influence comes because of an inherent cause, and the inherent cause happens because of a relationship. Now the relationship happened, then you got a latent effect, then you got a manifest effect, and all of this one is consistent from the beginning to the end. For example, last night you had what is called an appearance. Donald Trump had an appearance, and he made the appearance in 2016, November 8th, 2016, as the 45th President of the United States of America. Now there's an appearance of Donald Trump, then you had the nature of Donald Trump, and then you had the entity of Donald Trump. See, the appearance and nature and entity led to the power of Donald Trump as the president. The power of the president led to an influence. The influence comes from an inherent cause. You see, you got the influence, you got an inherent cause. Well, what is this inherent cause? In a very simplistic way, the inherent cause of Donald Trump becoming the president of the United States of America is that it's an inherent cause of the relationship he had with President Barack Obama, who was the first black president of the United States. Donald Trump didn't like the black president of the United States of America, so what he did, he ran to be the president, and it was an inherent cause. And what it was, his election is the result or the effect of a black man becoming president, because what he did was mobilize white people to challenge a black man being president, or what is perceived as being the loss of white status. Now, so again, you got an appearance, a nature, an entity, a power, and influence. An inherent cause, a relationship. Then what you have, like in Donald Trump, you have a latent effect. We don't know what he's going to do, but there is a latent effect. A whole lot of stuff is going to happen. So you got a latent effect, and eventually it's going to become a manifest effect. Now the manifest effect is going to eventually come to the 10th one, and all this is consistency from the beginning to the end. Now, once you go, again, we expand it as 10 worlds, times 10 worlds is 100 worlds, times 10 aspects, and the 10 aspects go, that's 1,000 worlds. So you got 100 worlds, times 10 aspects is 1,000 worlds, times the 3 realms of existence. Now the 3 realms explains, see, you can be right next to somebody, but you will not be necessarily in the same life condition. For example, there was Van Jones, who expressed a lot of remorse and anger and hurt for us black people because we were feeling bad to see Hillary Clinton lose. Now, the white man beside him, see, you had 2 different aspects. See, one of the realms is the realm of the 5 components. That is an appearance, then you got a perception, then you got a conception, you got a volition, and you got a consciousness. So that is one of the realms of the 5 consciousness. Then you got the realm of living beings, and then you got the realm of the environment. Now, what I want to do first, I want to show you a video of Van Jones who expressed the feelings and the compassion. And he is expressing the racism that the cause of really Donald Trump winning. The pundits say, oh, we don't understand, oh, it's a miracle, oh, they give all these reasons, and what Van Jones said was, really, we need to talk about racism because no one wants to talk about it. The reason that Hillary Clinton lost and the reason that Donald Trump won is that we have 70% of white people in America. Now, those people who live in rural America, they were the ones who went out and voted and came out in numbers in support of Donald Trump, despite him being unqualified, never taking office. You see, this is whole or the mystic law. Let's listen to Van Jones tell his feelings about how he was hurt about this and the racism. We're going to come back and put a period on this lecture. Donald Trump, President of the United States, Black Buddhist lecture. Let's listen to Van Jones and come back and put a period on it.
You're further than anybody said you would be. And I have enough class, and I was raised well enough to say when you outdo,
yes, sir, thank you.
When you outdo expectations, you know, good for you. But there's another side to this. People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country? I have families of immigrants that are terrified tonight. This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes. And Donald Trump has a responsibility tonight to come out and reassure people that he is going to be the president of all the people who he insulted and offended and brushed aside. Yeah, when you say, you want to take your country back, you got a lot of people who feel that we're not represented well either. But we don't want to feel that someone has been elected by throwing away some of us to appeal more deeply to others.
My lecture is titled Black Buddhist Teachings and the Capital Riots. This is what I want to teach you about our Nichiren Buddhist practice. Our practice is not about some Asian on a mountain meditating. Our practice is not about learning some Asian culture or finding some Asian sage or some master who's going to teach us how to find the answer to life. It's not that kind of party. You see, our practice and that we teach, we learn from the Gosho. Now, Nichiren has a Gosho, and when you look at these Goshos, you can learn about the teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni via the teachings of Nichiren Shonin, who was the 13th century black Japanese sage. Now, he had a Gosho titled The Gift of Rice that explains it. Now, a passage from the Gift of Rice reads, quote, "When the great teacher Malo compared these passages with the one from the 6th volume of the Lotus Sutra that reads, quote, 'No worldly affairs of life or work are ever contrary to the true reality.' He revealed their meanings and pointed out that although the first two sutras are profound, since their meaning is still shallow and fails to approach that of the Lotus Sutra, they relate to secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra explains that in the end, secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism," unquote. You see, understand, secular matters, secular, everyday life, this is the entirety of Buddhism. So if you want to talk about Buddhism or talk about the Capital Riots, that's a secular matter, and that is Buddhism. And to learn Buddhism, you must understand or incorporate or include secular matters in the Buddhist teachings. Buddhism is not just sitting at this altar chanting or going up on a mountain meditating. Buddhism is a common sense religion. It's a religion how to develop your inner strength, your inner power. Buddhism is about how to find the God within. Let's take this thing a bit further. You see, please understand that by 2045, white people will be a minority in America. There is a culture of racist white America to claim the power via any means necessary. There are voter restrictions, gerrymandering, intimidation, and anti-democratic intent of minority rule. You see, the Gosho reads, quote, "Only Buddhas know the true entity of all phenomena." See, there was a plan to get the far-right Supreme Court to reverse black achievements. This was the same reason why white supremacy, racism, and Asian supremacy do not want black people to learn true Buddhism. You see, this is how the Buddha or Buddhist explains both white action and even black action regarding matters. You see, there's a Gosho titled The Entity of the Mystic Law. It explains the actions of people, or it explains how these things happen. And the Gosho reads, "The mystic principle of true aspect of reality is like this. The mystic principle of true aspect of reality is one, but if it encounters evil influences, it will manifest delusion, while if it encounters good influences, it will manifest enlightenment. Enlightenment means enlightenment of the essential nature of phenomena, and delusion is ignorance of it, unquote. You see, what you have regarding the Capital Riots are people who are associated with an evil influence, who manifest this delusion. What we mean by delusion is they are unenlightened humans who believe in white supremacy and racism. And even you got black people who believe in black on black racism because they live or they have a consciousness of delusion. They are unenlightened people. Now, let me kind of explain a Buddhism enlightenment. When you look at Star Trek, you see an advanced human society where people have moved beyond race and culture. They are enlightened people because they are in a more enlightened culture, whereas you got people who are backwards, who wants to deal with white supremacy, who wants to deal with racism, who wants to deal with minority rule, and these are unenlightened people who make an unenlightened society. Now, you get it like, for example, President Donald J. Trump unleashed, as the Go Show reads, evil influence that manifests delusion. The delusion manifests as, like the Ku Klux Klan, the white nationalist groups, racism, white supremacy. The reason that these whites in political power want to own AR-15 assault rifles because they anticipate a civil war, and these whites want to be armed. You see, the issue of abortion is the same. Whites fear the decline in white population, and they want more white babies. Again, what Buddhism teaches us is that the mystic principle of the true aspect of reality is one, but if it encounters evil influences, it will manifest delusion, while if it encounters good influences, it will manifest enlightenment. See, what we must do is we must put out there or make the calls of good influences to change things. You see, there is a white movement in America called Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is a form of sanctified racism. It was the Christian church that sanctioned slavery, colonization, Jim Crow, and the terror of the Ku Klux Klan, who was noted for burning the cross. You see, on July 26, 2022, the Pope apologized for the deplorable evil of Canadian indigenous schools. Look at the headlines that read, "The Dangers of Christian Nationalism in the United States." It was not only white and Japanese racists, you got black on black racism, and you got black people who object to black people being proud and independent and having a dignity, or including black history, culture, into the Buddhist religion. How are you going to learn Buddhism when you can't even have a black person who can independently speak and talk because it is controlled by Asians? You see, in our entire world, that does not exist a significant group of black Buddhists who recognize our black Buddhist history or who is independent of Asian Buddhist masters. The question becomes, what is the significance of learning black Buddhist teachings in the Capital Riots? The significance of learning black Buddhist teachings in the Capital Riots is that Buddhist teachings have emerged that takes out the realm of viewing Buddhism as only an Asian culture, but Black Buddhist Teachings is a new and exciting, informative Black voice in America. You see, the Capital Riots is not the same for Black people as it is white people. See, the Capital Riots is rooted in white supremacy, racism, minority rule, anti-democratic practices. You see, we proud Black Buddhists take a stand against racism, including the racism that excludes all Black Buddhist history and language. A proud Black Buddhist lecturer. Thank you very much.